For whatever reason, you have moved or you plan to move to the country of Egypt. Maybe it's for a change of scenery, religious reasons, or you've fallen in love with an Egyptian. Who knows? Either way, life costs money. Let's talk about how much your new life in Egypt will cost you. My name is No Limit Eddie. I'm a 25-year-old American who lived in Egypt for over 3.5 years. And I've documented that entire journey here on my YouTube channel. If that's interesting to you, drop a like on today's video so YouTube recommends you more content you'll love. For most people that are watching this video that are in the States or somewhere in the West, typically your biggest expense is your rent. Well, I found that in Egypt, that's actually not the case. Like, your rent is almost your smallest expense. Apartments are by far, I would say, the most common form of accommodation you will find in Egypt. We're talking maybe 90% of all housing is apartment. The remaining 10% will typically be a villa. Because the more affluent Egyptians are the ones who are building and living in the villas, they're not even up for rent all that often. So single family homes like we're used to with their white picket fence and the grass, I'm not saying they don't exist, because they do. There are areas where they have single family housings and it's like a subdivision, but by and large, it's quite rare. Outside of that, when it comes to apartments, there's like the traditional project style apartment buildings where it's just a bunch of people, and those are usually found in Cairo. Those are dirt cheap. I've even heard of people renting those for $13 a month. They're basically like grandfathered into their contract. And then there are apartments, which are the ones that I would typically live in. They're more just like middle class apartments. You know, people who are like from Germany, people who are from the UK, they typically live in the same apartment buildings that I. And then you also have compounds, okay? Compounds are in essence like gated communities, okay? They're gated communities that normally have parks inside the compounds. They normally have pools. They normally have gyms. So essentially, it's like a gated community that has amenities. The apartments I live in, they just typically have like a rooftop, an elevator, but there's not like a pool and a sauna and these other kind of benefits. So those are like the tiers of apartments. Let's go ahead and talk about pricing and how things work. So in the States, if you're watching this from there, you're typically used to paying application fees, credit check fees, background check fees, move-in fees, fee for your hair being too long, a fee for your dog. Like, usually you're paying fees for basically everything. Here in Egypt, the process of getting apartments, I've had 4 or 5 different apartments, I believe. I can't even keep track in Egypt. There's no credit check, there's no background check, there's no pet deposits, there's none of that, all right? You pretty much just pay the first month worth of rent, and then you also pay the deposit, which is usually equivalent to 1 month's worth of rent. Okay, so if my apartment is, let's just say $500, I'm gonna pay $500 for the first month, I'm gonna pay $500 deposit, and then if you found the apartment through a broker is essentially a real estate agent, you're also gonna pay him a certain amount. Now, me personally, the one time that I did use a broker, I paid him a flat fee. I just negotiated to, hey, this is what I'm gonna pay you for your service. But usually, if you don't have a relationship with them established prior, then maybe you're gonna be paying, let's say, the equivalent to 1 month's worth of rent to the broker. That is, I would say, standard practice. But sometimes they may say, hey, I want you to pay me a percentage of the total amount of the contract. So maybe you sign a 12-month lease, and it's $100 per month. That's $1,200, I believe. Hopefully my math is correct. $1,200. They'll say, okay, pay me 10% of that. So that'll be $120 to him, right? You should discuss the terms with your broker before you start looking for houses with him. Hey, how do you get paid? What percentage do you take? Can we negotiate this down? Egyptians don't like to walk away from money, so you can generally negotiate with an Egyptian and get a price that you think is fair and that they think is fair. Now, what are the typical prices of an apartment in Egypt? Now, I've had a couple of videos go viral in Egypt, and they were all about apartments and how little they actually cost. You know, my most recent one was the one about my sister's apartment, where she pays about $98 per month for her apartment in Egypt, and it's a 1-bedroom. It came fully furnished with like fridge and ovens and couches, and everything was inside there. So yes, you can get something as low as actually $13. As an expat, you don't really want to live there, okay? But as low as $13 up to, I'd say, maybe $420 per month is the max you're really gonna be paying in Egypt. When I had a 2-bedroom apartment in a nice area very close to the beach, I was paying $310 a month for a 2-bedroom. And I know people who also had 2 bedrooms that paid, I think, $250 right? In a little bit of a better neighborhood, still close to the beach, but it just was like more stuff near. Like they didn't have to take a ride anywhere. They can just walk down the strip and get everything they wanted and be right back at their apartment. In reality, and these are not compounds, these are apartments. Once you start getting into compounds, you're gonna be looking at, I would say, 350 up to maybe 650 a month. And I also do have a video where I actually go through like what you can get for $1,000 per month in Egypt. You can check that video out. I'll probably leave a card for that. But right along with housing, you're kind of gonna have your Wi-Fi. Everybody wants to have home Wi-Fi, home data, home internet, and stuff like that. Here's the thing, and this is a big warning. This is some free game for you guys. Do not, I repeat, do not buy an apartment, rent an apartment, stay in an apartment that does not have its own landline connection. Okay, you need a landline route inside of your apartment. If it doesn't have one, you need to make sure you can get one. If not, your life will be miserable. A landline is basically like the router that you have in your house that you plug into Ethernet cable. Some apartments don't actually allow for those to be installed because the area already is like tapped out basically. So you need to just ask and make sure a landline can be installed. You're basically gonna be looking at £1 for 1 GB. Okay, and that is extremely low. Okay, like so low of a price. It's about £1 to 1 GB. Now, of course, because Egypt is like in an inflationary time, prices do change. But for the most part, it almost always stay consistent with like £1 to 1 gig. Now, I was paying around $13 for my internet, and that gave me 300 gigabytes of internet, and that lasted me for the entire month. Sometimes if your Wi-Fi does run out, you can just go down to the office and then reload the Wi-Fi, put another couple hundred Egyptian pounds on there, and then they'll like restart your package. So I'd say you're looking at anywhere from $13 to $26 per month. So in a 1 bedroom apartment, I paid around $13 a month. In a 2 bedroom apartment, I paid $26 a month because it would be 2 people, and we had to like, in the middle of the month, it'll run out, so we have to like do it again. A couple big providers in Egypt, there's We, there's Orange, and there's Etihad. I usually recommend people to go with We, but I also have a lot of friends that use Orange Wi-Fi, so Orange is also good. Go with either one of those two, and you're not gonna go wrong. Now, people do wanna know like, well, is Egypt fast? Is it slow? Like the Wi-Fi. Well, Egypt actually ranks 71st in the world as far as Wi-Fi speed, so it's not in the top 10. However, it is the #1 fastest in Africa. So Egypt has the best Wi-Fi in Africa, according to the statistics, is what they're telling me. Now, I don't live based off of statistics. I live based off of day-to-day life, okay? Because what's in the charts and what's in real life can sometimes be different. And I'm going to tell you right now, South Africa Wi-Fi is significantly faster than Egyptian Wi-Fi. I said it. Hey, I said it. Okay? So in real life, Egyptian Wi-Fi is slow, but it's not so slow that it is unbearable. Like if you're streaming YouTube, the video is gonna load without buffering. If you're watching Netflix, it's gonna load without buffering. If you're uploading content, that's where you see the slowness, right? If you are someone who uploads large files to like Google, you might begin to see like the slowness of the speed, especially with uploading. So even Uganda almost is faster at uploading stuff than Egypt was. Maybe it's my neighborhood, maybe it's this, I don't know. But the speeds are not the best. However, Egypt has ranked #1 in all of Africa, so maybe it's just your area that you live in. Since we're already talking about Wi-Fi, let's just go ahead and transition into telecommunications, like phone service and stuff like that. So the same companies who provide Wi-Fi, We and Orange, are also the 2 biggest providers of the cell phone service in the country. They kind of have a monopoly, to be fair. One thing that's quite different about Egypt that makes it cheaper, I'd say, to manage your phone service is that most things are sold a la carte, meaning one by one. If you want to be able to talk on the phone, you just buy minutes. Hey, you go to the We store, I want to put 50 Egyptian pounds worth of minutes on my phone. Hey, I want to put 50 Egyptian pounds worth of text on my phone. Hey, I want to put 2 gigabytes on my phone or 1 gigabyte on my phone, or right, like you buy data or you buy minutes or you buy tech. And by the way, if you guys want to know about moving abroad or living abroad, pick up a copy of my Ultimate African Relocation Guide, because I break everything down in there. My videos, I give a lot of free game in there too, but I have 500 videos. So it's a lot easier to read the book than it is to watch all my videos. Most communication is done on WhatsApp in Egypt and in most other African countries. So you just buy data and then you're good to go, because you can do calling and texting on WhatsApp. For me, I would usually only have to load around 2 gigabytes per month onto my phone, and that would cost me around $1.50 per month. And again, I'm only gonna quote you in dollars for the most part in this video, just because like the Egyptian pound fluctuates quite a lot in value. And so if I give you the Egyptian pound ratio, like there may be something totally different tomorrow. So I just prefer to give it a dollar. Okay, so now let's go on and talk about food. Now, in the beginning of this video, I told you guys that usually in the West, Germany, the US, places like that, rent will be your biggest expense. However, in a place like Egypt, I found for me and for many other people, food is a far bigger expense than rent is. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about that topic right here. Now, when it comes to food, you of course have the option to cook at home and the option to eat out. Let's start off with the option to cook at home. So you need to buy groceries to be able to cook. And if you want to buy groceries, you have a couple options. You can go and eat from local markets. So they have these things that are kind of like farmers markets, but they are very local in nature. They'll sell fruits, they'll sell vegetables. There's like butchers. Okay, they pretty much sell everything in these local markets, and you're going to get it definitely for a lower price than you would at a more major market. And I have vlogs of me going to the local markets and negotiating and talking to people, so you can just see what that is like. And then the other option for buying food is going to like a big box store, like a traditional grocery store. Maybe if you're used to Publix or you're used to Kroger or Ralph's or whatever you're used to in your local area. They also have kind of like the Egyptian version of those. So they have like places like Carrefour, places like Spinneys, places like that, right? Where they're big box grocery stores and they sell most of the things that we're used to. And they have a lot of imported products like Oreos, or they have, Hershey's and, Trident and different things like that that we're maybe used to seeing in our traditional grocery stores back in the States. Now, of course, between a local market and a big box store, you're going to see a price difference. Sometimes the big box store, though, can be cheaper than a local market. It just depends. If I was to cook at home, I'd say I spend maybe $20 to $30 per week on buying groceries, right? Buying the potatoes, buying the bananas, the tomatoes, buying this. You don't even need to buy seasons every week, but buying the different ingredients, the butters, right, that you need to cook. You might spend $20 to $30 per week in Egypt. That's for a single person who typically eats just like one big meal a day, maybe 2 meals a day, but it's just cooking is, not my thing. I don't really like spending time in the kitchen. The other option though is eating out. If you're going to be eating out, you're going to spend, I would say, on a minimum to get full, $10 to $15 per day to eat out. So if you can imagine my rent was less than $200, I'm spending more on food every day than I'm spending on rent, right? If I spend $10 a day, that's already $300 a month. If I spend $15 a day, that's like $450 a month, something like that. And that's about what I was spending on food. I would just eat out every day. And one thing I forgot to mention is that you can actually get food delivered to you. So they have these different apps where you can actually order your food, like 8 Orders or Talabat. You can go onto your favorite restaurant, input your address and everything like that, and they'll send the food to you. When the food arrives, you can actually pay with cash to the delivery driver, or if you wanted to, you can pay online. I pretty much never did the online route. I almost always paid the driver physically with cash. But you can order food, and that does also add to the cost you're spending every day because you're buying the food, which is always more expensive on the app, and then you're also paying the delivery fee as well for the food. So you're going to pay a little bit more, but you have the convenience of getting it delivered. You can also get groceries delivered, okay? Places like Carrefour, places like Fresh Food Mart, places like Abu Off. No, it's not called Abu Off. It was called places like a 10. They can actually deliver the food to you at your house, right? So whatever groceries you buy, they'll have like a truck come by and drop it off. Sometimes the same day, other times the next day, just depending on what app you use or if you went directly with the grocery store. In summary, food is also relatively affordable in the country of Egypt. If I was to cook at home, I spend 120, maximum 150 on groceries. Okay, so if I really wanted to flex, I could spend 150 a month on groceries. Now let's go ahead and talk about transportation. In general, Egypt really has 2 main forms of transport. You have what they call minibuses, aka what we call vans. Okay, they're just big vans. And then they also have cars, okay, usually on the apps like Uber or Bolt or Kareem. Now, those are the 2 main forms of transportation you can take without owning a vehicle yourself. We'll talk about owning a little bit later. I've never taken a minibus a day in my life. I would take Uber and then I would walk. Egypt is one of the most walkable places that I've ever been to. Very easy to walk. And then if I didn't take Uber, I didn't walk, then I have my own motorcycle that I would just drive around the city. So those are 3 forms that I took. Because I didn't take minibuses, I'm not going to speak on them too much, but they are the cheapest form of transportation outside of walking because walking is free. When it comes to Ubers, there's a lot of times where I catch an Uber and it'd be less than $1. and you're going a good distance away, 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away, you're less than $1 for Uber rides. Very, very affordable, free transportation. They have two apps, usually Uber and another one called Kareem. Those are the two big apps you can use to call transportation. In general, the drivers are cool on the app. However, this is just a free tip. It's better to have either pay with a card or PayPal, or the best option beyond that is to have the exact amount of cash. Let's say, for example, the ride is 75 pounds and you give them a 100-pound bill. Your change is 25. What the Uber driver may do is give you 20 and be like, oh, I don't have 5. And if that happens enough times, you're kind of being shorted each and every time you take a ride. And so it is better to have exact change. Like, it's good to have big bills, small bills, coins. Like, it's just good to have those things when you're taking Uber a lot. That's just some free advice, because they will try to get you out of anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds each ride you take, okay? And if you're using the card method, if you're using like the PayPal method, a lot of drivers don't like accepting that because it takes them a little bit of time to get paid out by Uber. And so they'll oftentimes cancel on you if they see that their ride is not cash, okay? So, hey, I'm giving you the sauce, guys. I'm giving you the sauce, okay? Pros and the cons. All right, now then when it comes to gas, right, I went back and did the math on like liters to gallons and how much everything was. So it really was around $1.61 per gallon when I first got to Egypt. And then because of the situation going on with Ukraine and that affecting oil prices and things like that in the region, plus the fluctuation of the currency, it was, by the time I left, like $2.32 per gallon of gas in Egypt. I would keep my bike full for, I'd say around 5, max, $7 per month on gasoline for my motorcycle. But I would say it was generally around 5. I would drive a motorcycle once a day, I'd say, usually a pretty big length of distance, going there and coming back. And I spend around $5 a month on gas for my motorcycle. Now, that pretty much was my form of transportation. Again, when it comes to owning these different things, owning these different vehicles, motorcycles are relatively affordable in Egypt. I mean, you can spend $1,000 up to maybe $1,500 and you get a motorcycle or a moped for around that price. If you want to get a car, cars are extremely expensive. A car that we can buy on the side of the road for $1,000 in the States will cost you $9,000 to $10,000 in Egypt. The same $1,000 bucket you'll get in the States is $9,000 to $10,000. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I hate feeling like I'm getting fleeced. I hate feeling like I'm getting bamboozled. And so to think, okay, I can buy this car for $999 on the side of Figueroa, and they're going to charge me $10,000 for that car, I'm not going for it. So I don't really recommend people to buy cars in Egypt. I don't really know very many people who did buy cars that were expats, just because it feels weird significantly overpaying for something. If they did have vehicles, they usually would just buy a motorcycle or a moped, and then they also would just hire a driver to drive them around. Most people did that. Now, if you don't really want to deal with the public transportation, or you don't want to deal with Uber, usually just go ahead and get an apartment in a better area that's very walkable. I say Egypt as a whole is a walkable country. When I lived in Cairo, it's the same. New Cairo is the same. Everywhere I went, Egypt was walkable. So you just want to make sure you're in an area where the stuff that you actually are going to use on a day-to-day basis is very nearby to where you can walk. Okay. So those are my tips and tricks for transport. And like I said, those are the price ranges you're looking to spend. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about shopping. Okay. Egypt has, I would say, a very big mall culture. If you want to have fun in Egypt, you go to the malls. The malls are where everybody is. If you want to meet a girl, you want to go to the mall. You want to meet a guy, you want to go to the mall. If you want to make friends, you want to go to the mall. The mall is just where it's like the congregation spots. Egypt is also pretty hot in the summer, and the malls generally have the AC blasting. So in the summertime, if you're bored, people just go to the mall, walk around, do a little bit of shopping. When it comes to something that's very important, that is, what do things cost? It is more affordable to buy clothes, shoes, all kind of stuff like that in Egypt than it is to buy them outside of Egypt, okay? And the thing about Egyptians too, they actually do manufacture a lot of cotton. Like, Egyptian cotton is very famous, and so they actually produce a lot of clothing inside the country as well, which helps to bring down the cost because there's no imports and duties and taxes on the items that they make themselves. Even when you go to, like, let's say the name brand stores, let's say the Forever 21s, let's say the H&Ms, American Eagle, American Express, I think it is, those stores, I would say, are going to be a notch or two more affordable than they would be in the States. The only thing that I'd say that's more expensive in Egypt is electronics. Those electronics and cars are more expensive. The phone that I bought, right, it was a Xiaomi 5G 11, whatever. some nonsense phone, but it was a Xiaomi. I would have got that same phone for maybe $200 in anywhere else in the world. I paid around close to $500 for that phone, right? So about 2.5x the price. Usually phones I found to be quite expensive. Cameras I found, oh my goodness, cameras. Let me say it like this, right? I wanted to buy a microphone for my camera. The microphone was gonna be around 2.5 times my rent cost for a set of microphones, guys. So electronics are very expensive in the country of Egypt. Just be aware of that in Egypt. But I'll say in general, shopping is more affordable unless you're talking about electronics, then you want to go somewhere else for sure. This is an example, right? Like if I want to get a pair of what they call first copy shoes. The first copy means it's not an original, but it's just like the original. I can spend $20 on a pair of like Air Force Ones or a pair of like Dunks or things like that. You can spend 20 bucks on a pair of shoes. They're gonna last you forever and they look exactly like the original copy, okay? Then if I wanted to get, let's say, a t-shirt, like I bought this t-shirt in Egypt from a store called De Facto. I believe it's a Turkish brand, but it's pretty worldwide, I would say. De Facto, LC Waikiki, like I saw those here in Uganda. They're also in Egypt. I saw them in Turkey as well. I saw them in a lot of different countries. But a shirt from there will probably cost you around 10 bucks, right? I have a whole shopping vlog that'll be very detailed and like exact how many pounds, how much I converted to. That I have a whole video about that. I'm just going off the top of my head. A t-shirt like this, maybe 10 bucks, right? Same t-shirt in the States, what would it be? Maybe 35, I would say. So yeah, relatively affordable. $20 for a pair of shoes, $10 for a t-shirt. If I wanted to get a shirt from a bazaar, which is like made in Egypt, I'm gonna spend like 3 bucks, you know what I mean, on a 100% Egyptian cotton t-shirt with maybe a little logo printed on there or plain Jane. You're gonna spend around $3. Honestly, I'll be honest with you guys. Say like if I wanted to go major shopping, I'll fly myself back to Egypt. Literally spend 300 something bucks on a round trip and go with 2 empty suitcases, bring back a bunch of clothes. Like Egypt is very affordable when it comes to shopping for clothing items, fake items, skincare products, hair care products. Everything I say in general is more affordable in Egypt shopping wise, except for cars and except for electronics. Those, I think this is because they have a high import tax. Okay, in regards to the cost of living, pretty spontaneous video, but I did want you guys to get a gist of how much things cost in Egypt if you're thinking of moving there, or if you already are living there, you should know what things cost so you're not getting scammed, okay? So yeah, with that being said, guys, in general, I say Egypt has to be one of the most cost-effective countries in the entire world. You can live well in Egypt for, I'd say, a minimum of $1,000 per month coming in. You can live well in Egypt. If you have a family, of course, you want to boost that number up just a bit, because the numbers that I gave you for a single person, I was eating alone. I wasn't buying meals for myself and 5 kids. Like, it's a different story, right? Different ball game when you're doing that. I think you have more unexpected expenses. I'm also a male, so I don't have to buy products every month, and so there's differences, right, in cost. So I say the minimum for a single person, male or female, is 1,000. If you have a family, then you want to think about the extra costs that you would have that a single person wouldn't have. But other than that, guys, don't stop here, because I have over 4 years worth of content on my page. Check out the video where I showed you exactly what you can rent for $100 per month in Egypt.
YouTube thinks this is the very best video on my channel for you to watch next. Click it and see if they're right. Other than that, see you all in the next one. Yah willing. Shalom.